BMW and Tesla, two very different car companies. One makes cars that looks like fish, another makes cars that looks like, well, I'm still trying to figure that one out, but at least I think the old ones are cool. One is known for panel gaps and giving the gap, while another is known for making the ultimate driving machine. But what most people don't know is how a small group of BMW engineers would not only save Tesla from bankruptcy, allowing the company to become the most valued car company in history, but also inspire Elon to give Teslas their record-shattering performance that has made them so successful today. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to tell you exactly just how this little known story happened. To understand the story, we first have to understand that Elon didn't just want to make a car company. He was a car enthusiast. He loved sports cars. He loved unique designs. He loved exceptional engineering. He loved cars that were fast and could hold records. And he loved driving them. His love for performance vehicles is what I think makes Tesla a huge success today. He brought to the market the first of what would be known as actual fun electric cars. A stark difference to what had been electric vehicles offered before it. Which makes it evident that Elon believes that cars aren't just some thing that are supposed to get you from point A to point B safely and economically. While they should do that, he also believes that there's something that should be driven, something that gives you excitement. And to that point, if you don't ever feel like you just want to go for a drive because you enjoy driving your vehicle, well, you bought the wrong car. And in my mind, had he not had this love for performance cars turning out and manifesting in Tesla, we may not even have cars that are competing with Teslas like Porsches, Audis, and other fast performance electric vehicles. Now the story really begins back in 1999 when Elon sold his first successful company, Zip2, for a small $300 million, which put in his pocket $22 million. And what did he do with his first big sale, netting him $22 million? He went and immediately spent $1 million of that on a McLaren F1. If you guys don't know, which you're crazy if you don't and you like cars, the McLaren F1 is a historical 240 mile an hour record-holding 6.1 liter V12 supercar. He loved the car so much that he actually drove it 11,000 miles in the first year, which is insane because when most people buy cars like that, it's hard to get them to drive it 1,000 miles in a year. So needless to say, he enjoyed the thing and he loved driving it. What made the McLaren F1 so special was its top speed. Yeah, McLaren's really good at making cars that are aerodynamic, slip well through the air, and have really good suspensions. But with all that, if you don't have the power plant to push you there, you're not gonna get there. McLaren actually had to approach multiple companies to find someone who could make them the V12 that would power their 2B supercar. He first approached Japanese companies, and I'm sure they all regret not jumping on board today, but eventually ended up with a small group of BMW engineers, which really made sense because BMW was famous for making high-performance inline-six engines. And what is a V12? Basically two inline-sixes side by side. So these BMW engineers created what would be now the famous S72 that powered the McLaren to 240 miles an hour and made it the famous car that it is today, a car that is still competitive today when it comes to top speed of any naturally aspirated engine. So Elon Musk, being the entrepreneur that he is, just selling his company, had to move on to something else big. So he was on his way in the McLaren with an investor in the passenger seat to a meeting with a venture capital company to secure more capital to create what would eventually become what we know today as PayPal. So a pretty important meeting if you can imagine. On the way there, his investor in the passenger seat asked him, "So what can this thing do?" To which Elon famously replied, "Watch this." So what did he do? He downshifted, put his foot to the floor, swerved a little bit, and spun the thing out into a ditch before launching back up into the air like a discus and landing on the road, pointing in the same direction that it was when he was traveling. Only this time, it was wrecked and it wasn't going anywhere. This was a problem, and luckily, neither he or his passenger were injured, but they still had to make it to their very important meeting. Imagine if they weren't able to make that meeting. Would PayPal exist today? I don't know. So they thought of a creative solution that you wouldn't expect people of their caliber to do, and they hitchhiked to their meeting and made it. And obviously, they gained the funding that they needed, and PayPal is what it is today because of it. And believe it or not, that's not even the most interesting part of the story. We still have to get to the end. But first, if you own a BMW, you're gonna wanna know about this. Speaking of creative ways to solve problems, did you guys know that BMW drive shafts are not serviceable? That means when the little U-joints in pretty much every drive shaft wear out over time, you can't just replace that little cheap part economically. You have to buy an entire new driveline. And that's where buyer driveline comes in. Instead of buying a brand new drive shaft from BMW or some other company, you can buy one from Buyer Driveline that comes fully refurbished with brand new high quality German U-joints that, get this, are now serviceable because they're installed with C-clips. That means if they ever wear out in the future, they can cheaply and easily be serviced and you're never gonna have to buy another new drive shaft again. They have most models in stock so they can ship it to you right away and send you a return shipping label to send back your core, which means you don't really have to have any downtime. And if there is any downtime, they can typically turn drive shafts around in just 2 days. Not only will they supply BMW drive shafts as refurbished units, but they can also create custom drive shafts like the one that's in this BMW for ones with transmission swaps like I have, or engine swaps, even if you have an LS swap. So if you're in need of a new driveline, don't buy another one. Don't buy it from a company that's not gonna make it serviceable. Check out Buyer Driveline. Let them know that I sent you Treats on the Streets and you will get 10% off. So now we have Elon with a wrecked McLaren F1. That was, to add insult to injury, uninsured. Terrible. An expensive car like that, not even insured. Who knows why he didn't insure it. But he loved the car so much they ended up using his own money to fix up the vehicle and kept it for another 7 years. To which, that 7 years later, in 2007, he ended up selling the car for a profit to be able to keep companies like SpaceX and Tesla afloat. If you guys don't know, Tesla's start was pretty rocky. They actually weren't even profitable until more recent years, so they were continually losing money and continually needing funding. And there came a point where Tesla was pretty much in trouble and needed some more money. So he was able to sell that McLaren F1 to fund Tesla and keep it going. And who knows, if he'd never owned that McLaren F1, if he didn't like performance cars, if the car that could do 240 miles an hour didn't inspire him to own it, he may not have had the funding to keep Tesla going, and Tesla might not even exist today. So, with a bit of a stretch, I admit, we may owe the success and enjoyment of Teslas today to that small group of BMW engineers who created that V12 engine which powered this historical vehicle to 240 miles an hour. And again, I also submit that had he not owned and enjoyed and driven the heck out of that awesome McLaren F1 for that many years, would he have been inspired enough to create the company Tesla the way that we know it, with record-shattering 0 to 60 times and performance numbers that put pretty much all other electric cars to shame? I don't know. Think about it. Why do people buy Teslas in the first place? Some of the people who purchase them, it may be because they don't want to fill up with gasoline, which doesn't really make sense because most people charge their cars with power that comes from coal or other dirty things. But most of the performance models are purchased because of the numbers, because it can do 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, and they'll pay thousands of dollars for an extra performance package that'll get them an extra point too. So if you drive a Tesla or some other performance-oriented electric car, next time you see a BMW, just realize that if that wasn't there, what you're sitting in might not be there either. Let me know down in the comments what you think. I appreciate you guys watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Hit the subscribe button along with the notification bell. And I'll see you guys in the next one.